We got 3 new champions coming to the game. Honestly, I'm not really impressed or blown away by any of their kits. You guys let me know down in the comment section if you see anybody in these 3 champions I'm going to showcase that you think, okay, this champion could be pretty good. I think Ty is missing something. Let me know. I would gladly test them out. But the first one we have is Darksmile. So the second one we have is Diamant Coppercoin, and the third one is Legate Teox. So those are the 3 new champions, 1 mythical and 2 legendary champions. And of course, I am going to test them out. I've already done some testing. Each one of these champions has some gear on them. But so far, I'm not like blown away by what they can do. They're solid, but it's not like, okay, this champion's going to be meta. This is the new best in slot champion. But you guys let me know. You could be seeing something I'm not. So let's start off with Mr. Darksmile here. His A1 attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Each hit decreases the target's defense by 2%, stacking to 20%. Each hit also steals 10% of the target's turn meter. Stealing is better than decreasing because stealing gives their turn meter to me. His A2 ability is an AoE attack, removes all buffs from all enemies, places a block active skills debuff on them for 2 turns, also steals 20% of the target's turn meter from each enemy under block active skills. Honestly, this skill could be so good if it was like ignores polymorph or can't be polymorphed. That would be awesome. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So we do have the chance of being polymorphed, and block active skills outside of arena really doesn't get a whole lot of, time to shine, because in dungeon content, if you want to speed run it, you're probably not using a strip with block active. Now, if you pull this champion early on, could be good, could help you get through the waves. But to be honest, I mean, it's a mythical champion. It's probably not what you're looking for. You're probably looking to push high-end content. And then his A3 ability is a single target, steals 100% of the target's turn meter, also puts the target's skills on cooldown. Not a bad skill, but I mean, it's not great. It's not like, okay, this is something I definitely want to use. We have Armons, who steals turn meter from everybody. We have Warlord, who drops the turn meter by like 70% and then increases their skill cooldown completely of everybody. So Warlord's better. Plus, Warlord is Void Affinity. This dude is Magic Affinity. So there's a chance of weak hitting if you target the wrong champion, of course. But hopefully, you playing him on manual, you're smart enough to not do that. But if you're doing it on auto, he is very likely to target a Force Affinity champion. Either way, let's look at his passive skill right here. Whenever this champion loses 30% HP or more in a single turn, deals damage to the attacker equal to 30% of this champion's max HP. Now, this is pretty cool. Also, when the champion loses 30% HP or more in a single turn, places a shield buff on them equal to 30% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. So if you're building him with a lot of HP, which you should be, then this could be a pretty solid hit. It could be like 30,000 damage being dealt to the enemy. So for some champions, this could almost kill them, like a George did possibly in the arena. It could almost kill him. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it prevents his death. He gets the shield. Not for sure exactly how that's going to work. I'll test it out some more, but this is pretty good, and it could work well in the arena, possibly. So now let's go over to his form 2. Basically, the Little Mermaid and the Joker had a baby, and this is what came out. We have a swollen Darksmile, but this champion, this new version, is an HP bomber. So bombs in general, I thought only scaled on attack, but they actually scale on the stat that is listed on the skill, as far as I'm aware. It'd make no sense for this to scale off of attack because his attack is abysmal. So the A1 ability attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 50% chance of placing bomb debuff for 2 turns. Heals his champion at 10% of their max HP for each bomb placed. Then his A2 ability, this is actually pretty solid, except for the fact that bombs on him doesn't do much damage, like at all. And you can't boost his HP in the battle like you could a attack-based champion, but I can do that on a future showcase. I tested it out, and each bomb did like 30,000 damage. It was not very good. So attacks all enemies, places 2 bomb debuffs on all enemies for 2 turns, instantly detonates all bomb debuffs on enemies with stone skin or enemies whose HP is less than this champion's HP. Then places stun debuff for 1 turn on all enemies who had their bomb debuffs detonated by the skill. I mean, that's awesome. That's an awesome skill in the text, but in action, his bombs, even with the amount of HP that I have, which is like 80,000, 86,000, just don't do that much damage. And the issue becomes, if you want good accuracy, you're going to have lower HP. And if you want good HP, you're probably going to have lower accuracy. I have him in Stone Skin. I could drop him from this. I could dedicate some better gear to him and see how hard they hit then. But currently, I'm not very impressed. But his A3 makes it a little bit easier. So it heals his champion. I don't really care about that too much. I do care about this weaken, because weaken does increase the damage that the bombs deal. So he's placing the weaken and then getting an extra turn. So it's in a way, boosting the damage of his bombs. I mean, it's actually boosting the damage of his bombs, but in a way, it's like the equivalent of, okay, Gaius is getting an increased attack, Nishak is getting an increased attack, their bombs are hitting harder, but still, it just didn't do that much damage. You do get the resistance ignore for mythical champions, so you could build them with a little bit lower accuracy and place the bombs on champions you otherwise wouldn't be able to. But the issue here becomes, do you have enough mythical books to do that? I don't know. I personally don't. And then his passive skill here has a 100% chance to reflect all bomb debuffs placed on this champion back on the attacker. Now, if you've seen my live arena content, you would assume that I would love this skill because I hate bomb champions so much. Also, a 30% chance to reflect all other debuffs placed on this champion back to the attacker. Heals this champion by 20% of their max HP whenever an enemy is killed by a bomb debuff. So he can sustain well. Bombs just... they're trying to force him into the game, but it's just not happening, it seems like. So bombs, they're just still, for some champions, are amazing. Nishak, I think, is probably one of the better bombers. Gaius is really good in some situations. Ashtoreth has her niches, but in general, I think Nishak is probably just one of the best. We use him in Bommel, we use him in the arena. He's just a very good champion. He can solo some content as well, places the poisons. He is one of the best bombers, if not the best bombers. But I don't think Darksmile is very good. Just my opinion. You guys let me know what you think. So next champion we have is Mr. Diamant Coppercoin, whose kit is interesting. Got him in a curse set, and you'll see why in just a moment. So his A1 is an AoE attack, heals allies by 5% of this champion's max HP. Heals by an additional 2% of this champion's max HP for each debuff on this champion. Now initially, I was like, yo, this is actually a pretty significant heal. I ran a run of Hydra with him, and he didn't really heal for that much. So what happens is, say you had 100,000 HP. Well, 100,000 HP, a heal for 5% is going to be a 5,000 HP heal. It's from his A1 ability, so with the proper team build, you could get quite a bit of heals from him. But if you compare this to like a continuous heal, like from Padrig, well, Padrig's continuous heal is 15%. So that's each time they take a turn, they get 15% heal. It's essentially 3 A1 abilities from him. So I think he could make for a good support healer, but he's not going to solo heal just from this A1 ability, considering he has 2 other skills with low cooldowns that are going to be used pretty often, right? Because they have low cooldown. So it's not a bad skill. If you had 10 buffs, then you could have, 20% plus the 5%. So you could have, I guess, 25% total heal if you had a huge amount of buffs. But it just depends on the team you're running. Also, if you have a ton of buffs, you're probably not needing a ton of heals. So it doesn't necessarily synergize perfect with like the Wixwell teams. However, his A2 ability does do pretty well with that. And if you need a champion for that, you could use him. However, keep in mind, he is a Void Legendary champion. So everything has to be measured based on that. Like, okay, Void Legendary, not just a regular Legendary. So his A2 ability attacks all enemies. Awesome. Another AoE skill. Means Curse Set, Provoke Set are all viable for this champion. Increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn. It's good. Like a Krisk. Actually, very similar to Krisk. We'll compare it and just, actually no, Krisk is right here. So Krisk is a 3-turn cooldown. Increased durations by 1 turn. And then fills this champion's turn meter by 10%. Fills a turn meter by an additional 5% for each buff that had its duration increased by this skill. So basically, he's going to get back-to-back turns. I mean, this turn meter boost is going to be so huge. If you have him in Slayer, he's going to be basically taking a turn right after that. And then his A3 places 3 intercept stacks on a target ally. Also places increased resistance and strengthen on all allies. This is really good. Strengthen and increased resistance are both buffs that are fairly rare. Increased resistance being the more rare of the two. So these are both good to have. And an intercept buff that has 3 stacks is also very good as well. Placing it on the leader, in the 2nd spot, 3rd spot, 4th spot. It just goes down the list. And then his passive has a 50% chance to convert a debuff into a buff before it is placed on this champion. Works with the following debuffs. So decrease attack into increase attack, decrease defense into increase defense, decrease speed, crit rate, all this kind of stuff. This doesn't seem that cool to me, honestly, because it's a 50% chance. It's only on this champion. If it was on everybody and it was maybe a 75% chance, that'd be awesome. It'd be really cool. Or if it was like some control debuffs as well, like a fear, replacing it with like an increased speed or something, that'd be cool. But this is unreliable. So also, we don't really care about attack being increased or decreased. Defense, oh, I do care about that. Speed, I do care about that. Crit rate, crit damage, I don't really care about that. He's not a damage dealer. So only 2 of those debuffs do I actually care about, which is the defense and speed. He doesn't have very much attack, 1100 attack, so his damage isn't going to be crazy high. He's going to be more of a support role, So he could find some room into some teams. And if you pull him, you could probably use him. But he doesn't seem like he's a champion who's going to be slotting himself into any of my best teams anytime soon. And then we have the new Faction Unity Lizardman champion. Now his kit's pretty cool. So his A1 ability attacks one enemy 2 times. The ally with the highest crit damage will team up and join the attack. So first up, my mind goes, okay, Oboro. Let's get him into an Oboro team. My current Oboro setup is Mikage, Padrig, and then Oboro, and then some other supports. So we have 2 ally attack champions plus Mikage's A1 that makes Oboro join. If I threw this guy in there as well, then we have him getting Oboro to join in, Padrig's ally attack, Mikage's joining in all the time. So now Oboro is joining in so much. The damage dealt by this champion and the ally joining the attack will be increased by 10% for each debuff on the target. So now you have Oboro joining in and doing even more damage, which is pretty sweet. And then his A2 is attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit will ignore 10% of a target's defense for each debuff on the target, which is not that difficult to get. It stacks up to 50%. Each hit will also increase this champion's attack by 10%. Stacks up to 50%. So this is kind of giving me like Varl vibes, because Varl, whenever he uses an active skill, increases his attack by 10% up to 100%. So it's a bigger increase, but it's also anytime he uses an active skill. For this guy, unfortunately, it's just when he uses this, and it's up to 50%. It does great an extra turn if he kills somebody, which is nice to see. And then his A3 is an AoE attack. Before attacking, places increased attack and increased crit damage. So for the arena, you don't need a buff champion for him, which is awesome. And then places an extra hit on enemies under any debuffs. So for Hydra, for PvE content, this is great. Enemies are going to be under debuffs all the time. For arena, maybe a little bit less reliable for the extra hit, because you don't always bring debuffs for the arena. But I mean, there's plenty of debuffs in the arena. We have Armand, so he could be a very solid potential option for the arena if he can hit hard enough, assuming they, don't have decreased defense or weaken on them. And then his faction ally skills, which for his faction could be pretty solid to get. We have Krisk, we have Pythion, we have Ramen2, we have Nekmo. So there's a lot of very solid lizardmen who could be used with this champion in PvP or in PvE content like Hydra and stuff. So his first faction skill is going to ignore strengthen and ally protection and shield. And then the second faction skill, which his first one is essentially just Necrit, just an ignore Necrit stuff. And then the second faction bonus is if enemies are killed by the skill while under a debuff, places a block revive debuff on them. Awesome. And then the 3 faction allies, it's going to be hard to hit this honestly, deals 20% more damage for each debuff on each enemy, stacks up to 100%. I can see the first one being pretty easy to hit, honestly. The second one, you might be stretching it. The third one, it's going to be difficult. But that's with any faction unity champion, basically. Getting all 3 in there is difficult. I mean, Hydra, you have 6 slots. If 4 are taken up by Lizardmen, well, you only got 2 more left. And then his passive fills his champion's turn meter by 5% whenever an enemy or ally receives a debuff. 1 faction skill, 25% chance to counterattack whenever an ally is attacked by an enemy under a debuff. This is awesome in Hydra. He's getting a lot of counterattack, which is very cool. All right, so after rebuilding him, maybe I need to test this guy a little bit more. He may not be horrible because he doesn't require anybody to buff him. The bomb damage increased by 20%. Let me test this real quick, if this does in fact increase it. So we did 41,000 just a moment ago. And now let's see what he's going to do with the bomb damage increase from the books. Is it going to increase his damage by 20%? If it does, that's going to be extra little chunk of damage there, right? So 5,000, is that correct? If that's the case, then we could be onto something here. Could be onto something. Mr. Komidus, it's your turn, buddy. We also have the 10,000 HP missing from the blessings, which is just 1 star. Okay. Boom. 41, 40. So it did not affect the bomb damage, which is kind of what I thought. We did stun the Duchess, so maybe not horrible. Let's see. So he's going to get back around to his turn relatively quickly, I think, and get... what's his cooldown on this? Decreased attack doesn't affect him. It would destroy Nishak. So 2 turn duration there. So not really great necessarily. But either way, guys, that's a showcase for the champions. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Let me know if any of those champions you want to see more showcased. I would love to do it. Be more than happy to. But other than that, thank you all for watching. Appreciate you all, and I'll catch you in the next one.